From the studios in beautiful Oceanport, New Jersey, welcome to the biggest and greatest podcast ever. I'm your host, Ray K. Hey, everybody. Good day, good evening, or good whatever it is, wherever you are. This is my third solo podcast with myself, which I do enjoy because I get to talk about, things that I experience and relay them to you because I am out in the real world like everybody is, or I hope everybody is. And I'll tell you some of my experiences, what I learned, some of the things I'm working on now, and things I've experienced in the way past, like 30 years ago. I like to get one thing from there that I kind of learned to give me perspective, which is an important thing to have. Well, I had a pretty special thing happen this week, actually, and it's one of those nice surprises. Sometimes they do happen, and this was one of those times. It's probably like a 1 in a million shot that this whole thing could have happened, but it had to do with this pool that we're putting in, mostly because we like pools and kids like pools. So when you're growing up, it's nice to have a pool, so we finally decided let's do this, so we got a good guy, a local guy to start the pool. First day, of course, they dig the hole, which is a one-day deal, and it's a big hole, so it's a lot of expertise. So they're digging a hole, and my wife's upstairs. I'm upstairs too. She goes, "Hey, look at this." "Oh yeah, look at that." So I'm on the second floor in the bedroom, looking out the window, and my wife notices the excavator, and he says, "That guy just looks like a excavator. He looked like he was smoking a cigarette." I later found out it was not a cigarette, but he had this little thing in his mouth. Kind of a big guy, smiling, the hat, the glasses, swinging the machine back and forth, digging. I'm like, yeah, he kind of does. And I commented, he looks like someone I know that used to do this, but that guy moved to Florida, so I don't think it's him, but he does look like this guy. His name's Sean, right? So anyway, so I'm eating breakfast. I finished breakfast. I'm downstairs getting ready for the day, and my wife says, yeah, someone wants to see you outside. So I'm like, why does someone want to see me? I mean, John, the pool guy, is the guy that's the contractor that's paying this stuff out and that's overseeing it. So what can little old Ray do? Like, what are they going to ask me? Because I'm just going to go ask John if it's okay. So I'm like, all right, let me just get a shirt on, change shirts, get a sweatshirt. It's a little chilly out, and, I'll be right out. So I go out, and my wife says, I want you to meet someone. I go, okay. And I go, don't tell me that's him. So, and it is. It's Sean, my guy. I played basketball with this guy 42 years ago. In 1977 was the last time I've seen him. And here he is in my backyard excavating and digging the hole for my pool. So I'm like, whoa. So we had a nice little reunion, little hug. We're talking about the old basketball days. We're laughing. And then, I was like, wow, this is cool. So the whole day was a surreal type day because it was about 70 degrees and sunny, which is nice. And we had a little dinner later, and we chatted about old times, new times, future times, all times, and had a lot of laughs. I mean, he's a real funny guy, and hasn't changed at all, which I commented on. It's like I was transported back to 1977. So it was pretty cool. And after that, Sean gets Yankee tickets, and he knows very well how huge of a Yankee fan I am, and so he's going to get 3 or 4 tickets for me and a couple other guys that we all know, and we're going to hit a Yankee game later in the summer. So how cool is that? And so we reconnected. Actually, we were connected on Facebook through the magic of Facebook, of reconnecting old friends. And so we were chatting a little bit on there, but I had no idea that this guy was going to be the guy digging my hole. And then we shot some baskets, for old time's sake. We each made a few. We each missed a few. And he did a couple little pick and roll moves, and, did the old moves. And it was fun. It was one of those things. And speaking of the pool process, I'm going to take pictures every day because I never had this happen before. But one thing I did notice is when you select the person to buy the pool, don't get swayed by salesmanship, because the first guy back right before Christmas was a great salesman. And this guy actually had me dazzled, and my wife even commented, because I even stroked him a check the first day, that night, because I was like so sold on this guy. And he was a very polished guy. And then after the next day, I'm like, you know what? I kind of I kind of wish I didn't do that. So I got the check back from him because I wanted to really think about it, which is something you should always do anyway. Don't make rash decisions because usually that comes back to bite you. So anyway, I found this guy, John, who was a local guy, and this salesman guy was kind of bashing him, I remember. And that's when it hit me that, everyone has an agenda, even me. I mean, everyone in the world, if someone's being nice, they're being nice maybe for something that might come back to them. There are genuine people, of course, and, they're just nice all the time, that are altruistic, I guess I'll call it. But, most everyone, at least in business, there's some sort of, they may not like someone because they're a competitor and they're great at what they do. So just because someone does not like somebody doesn't mean they're not good at it, so don't get persuaded, even if you read reviews, that they get a bad review, that could be the competition just writing bad stuff, So I kind of knew it when he kind of badmouthed this guy, so I took it for a grain of salt. I mean, some people might take it for gospel and then they never use the guy that's badmouthed, but you got to be aware of the agenda factor. So anyway, I got this guy John, normal guy, just like the guy next door. Has been doing it for like 35 years, and negotiation was very easy, and he was like about $5,000 less than the sales guy, which was probably in his pocket. It was probably his money. And so anyway, so we started the process. Got the permits, and the whole thing. It's about an 8-week process, I learned. So it's just interesting. It's 4 weeks for the pool to go in. They did the walls yesterday, and then then they got to get approval from the town for that, and then they got to go. They do something else, and they got the approval for that. So that's about 4 weeks. It's actually 2.5, and they need 2 weeks to settle. Then the landscaper comes in, and he finishes it up because you need a little pavement on the side, the pavers, the little things to kind of touch it up. So it's an 8-week process. So I'll fill you in as that thing is happening. It's going to be interesting when they fill the thing up with water, But the key of that was my friend, my friend that I kind of reconnected with, and that was exciting, So that was the coolest thing so far since I was last on. Let me think of some other things. Actually, let me go back. On the landscaper, you have to be careful also, because I've been working with somebody for about 8 years, and I got a quote, and it was like double the price it should have been because I ran it by a few other people. Because even if someone's a friend, you still got to get other opinions, And that was a little bit of an eye-opener, how if you're working with someone for a while, why would they shoot up that high? Maybe hoping I wouldn't check it out and then just say, okay, here, I'll pay the full price. But I did check it out, and I'm going to have a couple other people look at it too. And that was a little bit of an eye-opener. But I know it's sort of a sales technique where you throw things on, and if they don't catch it, then you win, or the guy that's selling the product wins. If they do catch it, then you just say, oh, okay, I'll take that off, sort of like when we went for a child checkup and the doctor threw all these things on we didn't even want. It was like $150, these extra tests and diagnosis things. And then I looked at it, I said, I didn't even order this. Why am I paying $150? And, oh, okay, we'll take it off. So I know that I learned from all scales, that's sort of a sales technique of kind of throwing it on there, just kind of seeing if you bite. If you don't, then you just take it off. So you think there's no risk. But there is risk when I'm involved because I bring you down a few notches, so I may not recommend you to the next guy if you try to, pull that kind of stunt with me. So anyway, so that was what I learned. Also, actually, I'm doing something on an appraisal thing on an investment. So I needed 2 appraisals to get an average appraisal of cost. The investment company, it's supposed to be neutral. They have all these new rules in place since the crash of 2008. I guess most of them are followed, but so I get 2 appraisals, which makes sense because you want to get an average. And the second appraisal comes in $100,000 lower than the first one, which, was crazy. I was a little bit in shock. Of course, the motivation might have been, is this guy getting paid off by the investment company? Because the lower it goes, the investment company wins. I want it high. They want it low, So now I gotta check that out, to either get reevaluated or get a third appraisal. But then that low one still gets averaged into the mix, so it might bring the cost up a little bit. So that was a little disappointing because I thought the field was pretty even leveled, but I mean to come 100,000 below, that was just absurdly below. I thought the first one was even low. Something just seemed up, So I mean I don't even know if you could get in trouble for doing that stuff. And I even told the lady, what happens if this guy came in $300,000 lower? I mean, it's just ridiculous that you do an average when something's so crazy, even below what the town evaluates it at. So we'll see if they do the evaluation like they said. So, but you got to be ready to walk away, So, I mean, if you're desperate, and then that's when you kind of lose, So you gotta be able to walk away and just have everything in your favor, really, to give yourself a shot. And that was crazy. So the appraisers have a lot of power, I mean, they really do, because every $10 or $50 or $20,000 they appraise something, high or low, can affect things dramatically, because that's money you eventually get or don't get, So, I mean, I know there's a lot of good ones. I know of one guy that's a real good guy, but I guess it's the 80-20 rule, which is like the reverse, where 20 are great and 80 are not great. And as George Carlin said, there is the worst doctor in the world out there doing a job tomorrow, doing the diagnosis. So I guess the same with appraisers. I mean, there is someone that's the worst in the world. I just hope I didn't get him at that time, but I think we'll work it out though, because I caught it. And that's probably that same theory where if you don't catch it, like with the doctor's thing for the $150, or my my landscaper guy, trying to double the price, maybe they take their shot, So that was quite interesting. Let me think of some other things that have happened to me. One thing, not happened to me, but that I've experienced. One thing that was interesting is I won't give names on this because it may work out, it may not work out. Was exaggeration. Some business people have a tendency to exaggerate, and I guess that's good in some ways when you're selling things. I mean, I know there's a fine line between legality, I guess, on how much you can exaggerate, how great your service is, but if you exaggerate so much, even on numbers, and eventually you want to move up and you want to go to the next step or the next level higher, and you're exaggerating on numbers, at some point when you sign off on things and you're going to finalize a deal, I mean, the bank numbers come into play, and when you're going to get caught if you're exaggerating numbers, I mean, that's going to get caught if you want to move up to the next level on things. So, I mean, that's sort of what happened as I made a little introduction to a couple people, just to kind of, it's always nice to network and introduce people to other people. I had a nice guy that I met at a networking event, because you never know who you're going to meet. Sometimes you go to networking events, and the networking event that you're going for is not necessarily the contact you can meet that's totally unrelated to that particular networking event. Because a networking event is really just a way you could get in and just meet people under this premise of whatever this networking event is supposed to be. But everybody has all different things that they're doing, and their different agendas. So you might meet someone totally different than what this event's supposed to be for, which I always know. And I happened to meet this guy that actually after I met him, I said, what, I could go now. I met the one guy I wanted to meet, and that was you. And so I combined the two guys and met him to this other guy with the exaggeration. So I mean, it didn't kill this particular situation, but you're going to get caught on numbers exaggeration. So, so it was caught, and the other guy is backpedaling a little bit, and now we're going to get to the right numbers, which we could have been there and saved 3 weeks time, so, I guess the wisdom is this guy didn't quite realize that, hey, if the numbers aren't as good as you think, still tell us, because this thing could still happen. But we just need to know the reality of it instead of going through this dance for 3 weeks. Now we know, so we'll see, we'll see where we go from it. So that was an interesting, situation, that's for sure. So those two things were kind of what really was going on the last couple weeks that I knew. As far as past things go, I was thinking how it's always good to look back from where you came from, because you get caught up in the present. I don't know, you kind of lose track of your roots, because the roots are kind of important, because that's really what formed you, and that's part of what you are, even though you're growing and you're learning, and you're definitely not the person you were, say, 20 years ago, or even a year ago, or even yesterday. You're different. But it's good to look back even like on a 30-year period, unless you're 30 years old, and then you look back maybe in 10 years, look back to when you were in your early 20s. I'll use that number. And if you're listening to this and you're 20, then look back to when you were 10, if you're 10, then look back to when you were 3, if you can remember that far. I'm kind of kidding on that. But, look back. And I was looking back, and I thought of a couple of funny experiences as I was trying to, figure life out. And a couple of them I'll share because, I was looking back on things, and I was like, wow, I came pretty far, from that thing. And one of them was my first job interview after college. You're a big shot, you're a college graduate, you think everyone's going to come out and hire you. I was a general major. I wasn't an engineer. I wasn't a lawyer. I wasn't a doctor. So I had to kind of go out and hustle and try and find my way. So the first interview, I get accepted on the interview phone call, and I get invited to this thing. I still didn't even know what it was at the time, but I'm a college graduate, and I'll impress them. And I put a suit on, and I felt like I looked pretty good. And I don't know what made my father go, but he comes with me on this thing. I guess he was a little suspicious, and I guess trying to look out for me. So I go to this thing with him, and all of a sudden there's this music blaring out of like the loudspeakers, like this rock type music. I'm thinking, this is bizarre. I mean, this is an interview, and there's like 250 people in this thing, and I'm trying to figure it out. Telly Savalas, who was a big star in the 70s, when I was a young kid watching TV, the bald guy with Kojak with a lollipop, his brother's there. His brother was sort of a little bit of a star at the time. He had like this curlier hair. He was a big guy. I'm thinking, what the heck is this guy doing here? Not thinking that he was, of course, paid, to show up. And, I'm thinking, oh, maybe he must really like this product, being Mr. Naive right out of college. So anyway, I'm checking it out, and this guy's, telling me about the product. And it's one of these things where you sell knives, out of your house, basically. They're nice knives. They seem like they could have cut anything. So the gig was you had to buy the knives. So you're putting up money. I guess that's where the, back then multi-level marketing was different than it is now, even though now I know people are very suspicious of it, because people that are involved in it, you can't even mention what it is. You just got to get them to the house, and then you'll lay it on them what it is. You don't say, hey, it's multi-level marketing, come over to my house, because everyone has sort of a bad impression of it. So this was what that was. I think it was more, now there's a lot of rules with it, with Ponzi's type schemes and stuff. But back then, it wasn't, it was just kind of like, I always felt new. So I go to this, I can't remember the name of the company, but it was the knives, and you had to pay $300 for the knives. I remember the number because at the time it was a lot of money, and I was like, what's this? You got to pay for this stuff and then sell them, and then you pay for more, and then you keep selling and paying, so the company doesn't lose. And me and my father looked at each other, and he was like, with the thumb, let's go. I go, okay, So that was my entree into the kind of the business world of, wow, okay, this isn't like you go to a nice, beautiful interview and you're offered this great job and you're having fun and loving it. So this is the real world that I stepped into. And then on my second interview was even worse. I'll give these two examples, of how far you come, to think that you go on these stupid interviews, and people actually do this stuff for livings, that they stay with it. And I guess some people probably do well, but it's, one out of probably 20,000 people that make a lot of money at it. But I go to this other thing, and I go for the interview. The day before, I go for the interview. I call it the day before I was supposed to start the job. And professional, they had a secretary at the desk. I go in the guy's office, and, we got this it's a selling job, sales. I guess he must have said what it was. I was I was willing to, go for a training program the next day to kind of watch it and see it in action. Never told me what it was, but I was just so eager to have a job. I really didn't care, So I'm in college, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to start making money. That was my whole idea, is just get a job. You got to get a job. So I go for the interview. I get this job and go home and come back the next day wearing my suit. I think it was the only suit I had, So it was a nice blue suit. I remember the color. I go in for the job, and all of a sudden the whole office changes. The desk where the secretary is not there. The whole office is like decorated in dark colors. I think there was music playing too, and it was this rah thing, and it was like, it was like the scene of a movie. It was just like it was like everything just changed, like a set of a movie in between scenes. I'm like, what the heck is this? So the guy comes up. The guy interviewed me. He changes personas. I mean, he was this professional. Hi, Ray. We'd like to have you, work here. Everything you figure a boss should be like. And all of a sudden, this guy turns into a maniac, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type thing. And he's like this super high-powered, crazy man. I remember he had glasses, and his hair seemed to get curlier as he was moving around. And he's giving this rah-rah, pep speech. And he's as serious as a heart attack, and this thing's great, and you're going to go out. And, so he pairs me up with this guy to go out and learn this business. I still don't know what it is. And so I go in this guy's car. Back then the cars were different than now. It was one of those sedans, long, big trunk. And he goes, we're going to Newark. I go, all right. I'm in the passenger seat. I'm going for the ride. I go, I'll check this out. So what it is in the back of his car, he has TVs, he has radios, those old style, those things you carry, those boombox things. And he has knives, he has clothes, he has a suit, he has a little bit of everything. So I'm like, how's he going to sell this stuff? I'm thinking we're going to maybe Kmart or some store to, present this. And we're going to Newark, and he pulls next to people on the side of the road, and he jumps out of his car, and I'm just watching this stuff with my mouth wide open, and he's gets super fired up, and he's like, we pulled it off again. You wouldn't believe this. Look at this deal we got. I just came out of the store. I can't believe we loaded the car up. Almost selling it like it's stolen goods, even though it wasn't, but that was we got a great deal. I'm just got to get rid of this. And he starts to sell it that way. And he goes, I got this, look at this. I got this stereo. Look at this, $25. I'll sell it for you. I just picked it up at, as if he stole it. I'm like, wow, this guy's going to pitch it that way. And some people were buying it. They were, here's $25. I didn't even know if this stuff really worked, but he was getting rid of it. Clothes. Here's an old suit. I just got it off the rack. You want it? And I'm like, what the heck? And he's selling everything. And he sells out the back of his car. I guess he must get a piece of whatever the inventory was. It was a bunch of stuff. And by the end of the day, it was the guy sold everything. I'm like, he was quite a salesman to sell it that way. And I was just a little bit in awe. And I'm thinking, well, one thing I know is that this is not for me. There's no way that I'm going to go in a car and go to Newark or go to Camden or go to Cherry Hill or go to New Brunswick or go to Jackson, New Jersey, and just find people on the street and just pitch this thing like it's stolen goods, and I'm going to give you an unbelievably great deal, and I need cash, and then zoom away in the car, because I kind of got to get away in case somebody, catches me, And I'm thinking, well, you know what? This isn't for me. And so I actually, I was worn out. I didn't sell a thing. I was just watching this guy. And I was literally at a headache. I remember I was just so worn out watching this, and kind of disillusioned a little bit with the workforce, that these kind of things are going, this is how people are making livings. The guy that interviewed me, of course, money or, whatever it's called. And, he gets a piece of the action. I guess it's good for that guy, if you have the guy that, the money guy. And he had about 12 sales reps that were going out doing this stuff, So, I mean, I never went back again. And I guess some people would, but I literally, I literally was sick after watching the whole thing, physically. And, just thinking back the other day, I was just thinking back to this kind of the old jobs you used to have. And it's good for everyone to do that, and realize, how far you do come. And, you kind of get a chuckle at it that, I mean, I was really in that car, looking around. I'm trying to picture myself doing that, and now it's funny, just thinking I went through that. So that was my first two job experiences that I turned down. Actually, on the next one, I'll talk about my first real job when I have my interview number 4 with myself. I mean, this is 3, and those are the 3 things that I like to talk about over the last couple of weeks. So this is exciting. I love sharing experiences, because that's how we all learn. Uninhibited sharing, because if someone can learn something, whether it's, be careful, don't trust like a quote on a landscaper, even though you know the guy, you always got to get another opinion, or don't jump into anything. Even if you sign a check like I did for that guy on the pool, I mean, next day ask for it back. Say, I made a mistake. I got to think about it more. Don't be shy. We all make mistakes, and you could recover your mistake, if you just, take action, So, all these things are fun. Write them down too, because it's fun to write stuff down, and you kind of learn when you write. You just it's just good to kind of get your thoughts on paper. So anyway, those are those 3 things. I'm going to go into my hit and miss, which I always love, because this is how you find out about people, actually. That's why I like doing it on my show with my guests, because I kind of like catch them by surprise. So this is my 3rd hit and miss. I wrote stuff down. I can't remember what I wrote down, but here we go. Favorite vacation spot? Disney is up there because it's so relaxing. I think I spoke about it before. I've been to Ireland. I counted it once. It's well over 80, 90 times. So that's got to be up there, because I was so comfortable with Ireland, as far as the countries go. I mean, London was great, So in the U.S., I got to say probably Disney World. That's quite a spot. And, that's my number 1. All right, what do I love most about sports? Well, let's see. Watching it, I love when my favorite team is playing, and it's a big game. And I still feel like I did when I was 12, that you really root for that team to win. I mean, it's some kind of great feeling when your team's in it. If your team's not in it and it's a great game, that's still a great feeling, because you love watching, that competition and 2 teams that are kind of evenly matched, going for the win. So watching it, that's what I love, when my team is in the hunt for a great game, and it's exciting every single inning, every single out, every single play. If it's football, if basketball, every single play on a championship game is important. So as far as playing it, I just love being in the game. And I guess the best thing you love is when you make a great play, and you have a decisive play, and whether you score a winning basket, or you make a winning pass, or you have like a run of 3 straight shots and your team takes the lead, or in baseball you get a key hit. That's of course the most fun you could have in sports, is when you're a key factor in winning the game. So that would be that. Favorite Italian dish? Well, lasagna always comes first. What I like too? I like ziti with nice marinara sauce with that grated cheese, and sometimes maybe with like a little meatball on it, once in a while. And I like the combination ziti meatball. I don't know why. I like to put a couple of them on my fork, and then get a little scoop of a meatball on there. But lasagna, especially the way my mother made it, I find some dishes are great. I never had like a bad lasagna dish, I think, but I like the meat lasagna more than the vegetable one. I'm a meat lasagna guy, and especially the next day. I mean, I don't know if you always hear it settles, or there's something about that next day lasagna that is almost out of this world. So that would be my number 1 Italian dish. Do I drink beer? That's a good one, because a lot of people say, Ray, you want to drink? And a lot of times I decline it. I don't give in to the peer pressure of it. But I do drink maybe 3 or 4 a year. As I say, special occasions, with my son if we're doing some special occasion, or I always have a beer at the last game of the softball season. It's sort of my tradition. Everybody has it during the games. I have it the last game. So just about maybe 3 or 4 times a year, if I'm with a friend I haven't seen in a while and I'm in the mood, I'll have a beer. At most, I might have 2, but it's about three times a year I'd say I average having a beer. So yes, I do drink beer sometimes, not a lot. Favorite car? Oh, I like the anything high, the truck, the Grand Cherokee, anything a little bit high off the ground. I don't like the sedans anymore. I used to, that's all I drove, like a Maxima. I used to like those, but I don't like being low on the ground. I like being high. So anything a little bit higher off the ground. I don't have a particular favorite, but I was never a car guy. But something up high, not too high, but something up high. I'll say Grand Cherokee. Biggest fear. Biggest fear. You always fear losing all your money. I guess that's some crazy catastrophe happens or something. That's I guess in the back of a lot of people's minds. I don't fear snakes or spiders really. I fear heights a little bit. I do have a fear of that, and I do have a claustrophobia fear, like in a tent when a tent is enclosed. I feel nervous, during that. So that's, I guess those 3 things. Heights might be my biggest. I just don't like being high with open space in front of me. Recurring dream. Yes, I do have a recurring dream, and I get it every couple months, and it's always the same theme, which is I'm the age I am now, and I never had it analyzed. Maybe there's no sense to analyzing it because who knows why I have these dreams, and it's I need like one more credit back in high school, and I have to go back to get this credit, and I'm like, I am like right now currently the way I am. And now I got to go back to high school, to get that one credit for like a half year. I got to go, and it's okay, So I go to the school for the half year, and I have a chance of making the basketball team because I didn't graduate, so I could possibly make the team. So I try out for the team, but I always seem to miss the first and second games, and then I get cut or I don't get cut, but I just get forgotten. So I don't know why I have this dream, but it's the craziest thing. I don't even know if I get that credit or not, but the main factor is getting the basketball, because I'm going to be real good. I'm older. I'm going to be dominating on the team, but I never could get to those games. Something happens or I miss the game, and then, then I wake up, and then 2 months later I'll have that same kind of dream. Little variations of it, but that's mostly the themes going back to that school, and it's just an odd thing. What was the original Yankee Stadium like? Okay. I like that question because I was in it. The 1923 stadium. People think the 1976 stadium was the original, but it really was not the original. It was the 1923 stadium with the 463 feet and the monuments in center field and that great facade. And I loved it. I mean, it was that center field was so deep. It was exciting. You were right on the field. I mean, you could hear every bat crack and every hit was loud, and you were right up close. You had those little girders. You had to make sure your seats weren't behind, but that was no problem. I always seemed to be behind them, and you just kind of peer out, and it was just like magical when you come through that tunnel. And you start walking up, and then you start seeing the green field, and you get closer, and the field gets bigger and bigger. And then you start seeing that facade, and then you start seeing the players in batting practice. And it's like a feeling I've never had before. And it still is pretty magical thinking about it as I'm just talking about it. It's just, you're looking through that whole thing through the eyes of a kid. So everything is magical, and it's like you're walking into, the Wizard of Oz, as I say, when the color part of the movie happens. You're like, this is incredible, So That's what the original Yankee Stadium was like. Of course, back then the Yankees were not great, so, but I thought they were. I mean, even though they weren't, I thought they were. I thought Gene Michael was the best shortstop in the league in 1973. So it shows you what you think like when you were a kid. So, that's what my experience at the original stadium was. The second one was good too. The third one, great seats, it's comfortable, but you don't have that magic, that tradition. You lose that for the comfort. So I prefer the magic and that, knowing that Babe Ruth actually really played in the spot. And the huge scoreboard in right center field. The whole thing was magical. Was the word. Anyway, that was my podcast with me, Ray K, and we'll catch you next time.